Not only is Spencer Strider back on the mound, the dominant Spencer Strider is back. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Tuesday, March 18th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_Today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, BravesToday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. And I want to get to Ian Anderson and AJ Smith-Shawver and the trade that the team made last night and how that may pave the way to get AJ Smith-Shawver on the roster. I want to get to Drake Baldwin and the signing that Atlanta made yesterday. But we've got to talk about Spencer Strider, okay? Because we talked on yesterday's show that he was coming back and that he was making a start and that we had reasonable expectations. It wasn't the first time he faced hitters all spring. And so the thought process here was just his first game action. So the thought was, okay, he should be able to be fine, right? He should do okay. I was curious how many innings he'd go, what his inning count would be. Maybe 2 innings. Would he get 30 pitches, something like that? I could never have expected what happened yesterday. In 2 2/3 innings, Spencer Strider was quite literally perfect. He threw 27 pitches, 23 of them were strikes. He had 6 strikeouts in 8 batters faced. He also allowed a ground out, the very first pitch of the game, a ground out. And he had a pop out into foul territory on the third base side. So through the slider, through the curveball, the fastball was sitting 95 to 97 or though. I think he popped a couple 98s. You're in a situation here where literally every single thing you needed or wanted to see from Spencer Strider, you got in yesterday's game. I genuinely don't know what else he could have done other than finishing the third inning and coming back for a fourth. We heard him talk after the game, which, by the way, if you want to hear that entire press conference, the Braves Today YouTube channel, we posted the video, I think it's 9.5 minutes, of Spencer Strider talking about the outing, his thoughts, answering questions from the media. So go check that out. That is completely free on the Braves Today YouTube channel. He expressed that, hey, he feels good. It was nice to get that behind him. And just a lot of really good comments about the process, about his thoughts, how things were going. I do appreciate the fact that he also tried to temper expectations in there a little bit in that press conference, because there's going to be people who see the velocity, see the stuff, see how well he looked, and said, let's get him back as soon as possible. And I do appreciate that Strider tried to temper that a little bit. The quote here, and again, this whole press conference, this whole media availability wasn't an official press conference, right? This whole media availability is available on our YouTube channel. Quote, I don't know what the plan is for the next start. There is a schedule, but all kind of things will affect when I pitch and where I pitch. If I pitch in a game, a backfield, all of that stuff. Side note on there, Grant Holmes pitched on a backfield last week. Ronaldo Lopez did as well. Somebody asked about if Ronaldo Lopez was healthy. He is. We should see him later this week. Back to Strider. So we need to be calm and not get ahead of ourselves. Today, it's an easy one to say, I can pitch in a game right now and just start running, but that's a little over-aggressive. The medical and training staffs here, a lot of overlap, but those are separate groups, right? They are the ones that have laid out a plan. And there is, he referenced a schedule. We obviously aren't privy to it, but there is a schedule of when he was supposed to start throwing, when he was supposed to add breaking balls in, when he was going to get on a mound the first time versus a flat ground, when to face, all of that stuff. So this is a step in that schedule. That schedule is not done. He is not finished with all of that. His own words were, quote, "It's like a little reward sprinkled on the pathway." That's how I view it. It's also just a good kind of test for the work you've been doing. You get to see some things at game speed that you can't really analyze super well in bullpens and stuff like that. So to go through the full routine, hear the national anthem, do all that stuff, shake hands with the guys before, you get a more honest evaluation of everything. We do need to understand. This was amazing. Like, literally, I have not seen a more impressive return from Tommy John than that. We are not done, okay? We talked about this yesterday. If you follow the timeline and the pattern and things like that, you're looking at, he really probably needs to make 4 or 5 more game appearances before you feel comfortable putting him into an MLB game. And there obviously is not time for that, because your final spring training game is next Tuesday. He even mentioned he may not get into another official game. Pitching on Monday, regular rest would be Saturday. Maybe he gets the Florida spring training finale on Sunday versus the Orioles before they head out to San Diego to take on, or head out west to take on the Cubs in Arizona and then San Diego. But the thing to understand is, this was a great first step, and he is obviously as prepared for the next step as humanly possible. So I feel good about when we get him back, knowing that he's going to be effective. He didn't show reduced velocity. He didn't show issues with his breaking stuff. He didn't show control issues. That's typically one of the biggest things for a guy coming back from Tommy John. And he said the same thing, quote, "To see the stuff, metrics on the pitches, movement, and just the swings and everything tell me what I need to know. To see that come, that's nice. Velocity is the last piece to me. That's definitely something I'd like to have a slow build with. But still, seemed like the ball was getting on guys, and I know it's spring training, but definitely a good one." Talking about the outing. What's going to be really interesting is having Spencer Strider and Chris Sale in the same rotation, because they've one time through for each of them. They've never been in the same rotation. And Sale, yesterday, when his media availability after being named the opening day starter, which, by the way, that's also available on our YouTube channel, he said, don't forget, let's not forget, he's still the best pitcher on this team. Talking about Spencer Strider. There's no question about that. You look at the pure stuff and what he's done when he's healthy out there on the mound. He's potentially the most electric pitcher in the entire game. It is entirely possible that when you get to the postseason, Atlanta could have 5 guys, maybe 6 guys, that you would feel comfortable throwing in a postseason game. Spencer Strider, Chris Sale, Spencer Schwellenbach, Ronaldo Lopez, Grant Holmes, AJ Smith-Shawver. Who knows? Now, obviously, you've got workload questions on all of those guys. We addressed that yesterday. But the embarrassment of riches you're going to have there is wild to me. And I did find something funny. I apologize to whoever this was. Somebody had this on Twitter yesterday, and I don't remember who it was. But you played the Padres in the wild card round. Obviously, they eliminated you. And in the 4-game series you have in San Diego to open the year, assuming Grant Holmes is the 4, you are going to have 4 pitchers that were on the 26-man roster for that playoff series that San Diego never saw. It's just hilarious to me because they didn't see Lopez, they didn't see Schoenbach, they didn't see Sale, they didn't see Holmes. Because all of those guys, either Sale wasn't unavailable or all of the rest of them went late in the year to get Atlanta in the playoffs. So I just find that note hilarious. that all of these guys were on the roster last year, but we weren't able to use any of them in the wild card round. And now we get to throw that quartet against San Diego. In just a minute, let's talk about the Atlanta Braves making some moves to give Drake Baldwin a spot on opening day. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our new sponsor, Chinook Seedery. These are, like, if you're a baseball person, sunflower seeds are a big part of the game, right? The players all eat them in the stands when you're watching, especially like youth baseball and stuff. Sunflower seeds are great. Chinook Seedery, these are the best sunflower seeds available, okay? They are the largest. There's standard flavors. There's unique flavors, just the right amount of salt and everything. You can build your own. You can buy the variety pack. You can stick with the original, or they have some special flavors. Lemon pepper, which is the custom flavor of Royal shortstop Bobby Witt Jr., jalapeno ranch, Parmesan and pepper, cinnamon toast. That's a fun one. I had those ones on a road trip. Those are fun. Dill pickle, if you're a pickle kind of person. Hatch chili, if you want the heat. Smokehouse barbecue. ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES gets you 10% off your order with Chinook Seedery. Again, Chinook Seedery, CHINOK, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES gets you 10% off your order. And we want to thank Chinook Seedery for signing up to be a sponsor of the Braves Today podcast. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby talking about some of the huge developments from spring training on Monday. We covered Spencer Strider. Let's talk about Drake Baldwin. Because Atlanta made some roster moves that are going to guarantee that Baldwin is the starter on opening day. On Sunday, they reassigned veteran catcher Curt Casali to minor league camp. I believe he was going to exercise the opt-out. He was released on Monday. So he will now have a chance to get on with somebody else, a team who could potentially need a backup veteran catcher. Reminder here, he was an XXB free agent. I discussed the retention bonus in a previous show, went back and checked the CBA. The MLB PA confirmed this for me. That has been removed from the newest CBA. So Atlanta had no way of keeping him from opting out. So they went ahead and released him early so that he can find a job. Sandy Leone was reassigned on Monday to minor league camp as well. So your only two catchers left in major league camp, Drake Baldwin and Chadwick Trump. There you go. They are absolutely, Drake Baldwin is breaking camp with the team. Now, the team did sign James McCann to join the team like late in the day yesterday. According to all the reporting, everything has been confirmed. He is going to start the year in Gwinnett. He has not had a spring training. He's going to spend at least the next couple of weeks in AAA Gwinnett. And this, to me, is that insurance plan. Sandy Leone joined the organization last year after the Sean Murphy injury on opening day. So that in AAA, they had to call Chadwick Trump up to back up Travis d'Arnaud. You still had multiple catchers in Gwinnett. Same situation here. You'll have Adam Zabrowski, whoever else is going to be catcher in Gwinnett. You'll have McCann there as well, in case you have another injury at the major league level. And then he does have an opt-out date as well. He can't exercise before the season starts, but he'll have an opt-out date. I believe it's like in either May or June. He'll have an opt-out date. It's possible if Chadwick Trump struggles, they can promote McCann. He may not opt out. He may choose to stay with the team. Who knows? Sandy Leone was phenomenal down in Gwinnett. Drake Baldwin has talked about, once he got there, how helpful Sandy Leone was to him and helping him get to the point where he could be the starter on opening day. James McCann, friend of the show, Justin Toscano, was talking about this on Twitter, said he covered James McCann when he covered the Mets. Really good guy, team first guy. He's willing to be a mentor, serve whatever role you need him to. I don't think he's going to be the major league starter for Atlanta unless a lot of things go wrong. Murphy's injury takes a lot longer. Drake Baldwin also struggles, and you have to do something besides just Trump. It's possible McCann is that guy. He grades out a little bit negatively defensively. The bat's only okay, but ton of experience. So he can hold down the fort. It's a low ceiling, but it's not bottom of the barrel floor, right? But in the meantime, the path is clear for Drake Baldwin. So let's talk about who he is. And if you want to see this, by the way, I put out a newsletter this morning as part of our Meet a Prospect series, all about Drake Baldwin. We did one of these on Sunday for J.R. Ritchie before the spring breakout. We did one today, now that we know Drake Baldwin's going to be the guy. So I want to give you a little bit of the insight behind what Drake Baldwin did in AAA, what his strengths are, and what some of the inputs that we have for him say, because he's doing pretty well in spring also. So he made it up to Gwinnett in June last year, mid-June. And his numbers got a giant lift once he got there, which makes sense because you remember me talking about Mississippi was like one of the worst ballparks to hit in period in all of minor league baseball, but especially for power. That's why guys like Michael Harris didn't have more national recognition with the prospect evaluators before being called up, because his numbers weren't outwardly impressive, but Atlanta had all the under the hood stuff to know how good he was. So when Baldwin got to Gwinnett, because the stats in Mississippi aren't even worth talking about. And I hope that Columbus is a much better offensive environment than Mississippi was. When Baldwin got to Gwinnett, 72 games, 298 batting average, 407 on base, 484 slug, 12 homers, 55 RBI. And one of the big things to me, 52 walks to 54 strikeouts. So almost as many walks as strikeouts. And obviously less than one strikeout a game, easily. Now, he only got 50-something games behind the plate, right? You can't play catcher every single day. He did DH quite a bit. Not quite a bit, but he did DH some there in Gwinnett. But, oh yeah, and by the way, in spring, he's 10 of 30, 4 runs, 3 RBI. So he's batting .333 with a .444 on base. But let's talk about what the StatCast info that we have tells us about Drake Baldwin, because we do have StatCast info for AAA. And it paints a picture of a patient and high contact hitter that should have decent power production, okay? Overall contact for Drake Baldwin, which is just whenever he swings the bat, does he make contact? 79%. Not bad, right? You absolutely will take that. In the zone, however, 86.2%. And I think that's relevant because hitting coach Tim Hires, one of the things he preaches is finding your pitch and hitting your pitch. So being able to pull the trigger in the zone, one, I think is something that Baldwin can do a little more, but he has shown to be pretty good at making contact when he swings at pitches in the zone. His overall plate discipline metrics here, by the way. Plate chase rate, 22.5%. It's a good chase rate. You're happy with that. Swing, 44.5%. He's a little more on the conservative or patient side. But in the zone, 70%. And I liken that for him like Michael Harris, where I feel like one of the weaknesses, the understated weaknesses Michael Harris has, is not making enough swings at pitches in the zone. He needs to swing more, especially pitches down the middle. Michael Harris was actually negative run value on pitches down the heart of the plate because he didn't swing enough at strikes. So I do think that's a little adjustment you'll see from Baldwin under Tim Hires. The power metrics all come out pretty well. 10.2% barrel rate. I think that can be improved. I'll get to that in a second. Average exit velocity, 92.8. So the average ball he's hitting is not a hard hit ball, but it's pretty close. His 90th percentile exit velocity which to me is a great and one of the more reliable indicators of power, 106.5. MLB average last year was like 103. So he's hitting the ball with above average power in AAA. That is equal somewhere between a 55 and a 60 on the 20 to 80 scouting scale. So above average to plus, right? Max exit velo of 111.9. I don't really think max exit velo matters that much. It's always fun to see when a guy has an absurdly high number or an absurdly low number. I wonder what Nick Allen's max exit velo is. But the more descriptive one to me is the 90th percentile of 106.5. So it feels like it should be a plus power ceiling. If there is a weakness here, if there is something to be concerned about with the profile, besides just how he adjusts to big league breaking balls, right? It's going to be in the batted ball profile, okay? In AAA last year, 50% ground balls, okay? 25% line drive, 22% fly ball, and the rest of that is like pop-ups, foul ball, that kind of stuff. So 50% ground balls. And he's not a fast runner, right? He's not a speedy dude. So that's going to be an issue right there. But if he has improved a little bit on that, and I don't have a breakdown of like month by month, maybe he got better on that after a month in AAA, I don't know. If that is better, then you have a catcher who bats lefty, who can hit for power. It's a great addition to the roster. He should have the tools to be successful, provided he doesn't have a massive learning curve. It's the offensive tools. Defensively, he has gotten much better. Eddie Perez told Mark Bowden of MLB.com, Drake Baldwin reminds me of Brian McCann a lot. Brian was a great hitter, and he needed to work hard as a catcher with his receiving and his throwing. He became one of the best. I see this kid the same way. He's learning, and he likes to learn. From when he got drafted to this spring, a lot of the public scouting reports, your Baseball Americas, your MLB Pipelines, all that stuff, they all talked about Baldwin's defense getting better. To the point where Baseball America said that internally, contacts they had in the organization, the Braves, quote, were excited about the strides Baldwin made in his relationships with pitchers, and externally, scouts view his ability to manage a staff as his carrying defensive tool. We've seen him now in spring. He's caught almost every single starter. I don't know if he's caught Ronaldo Lopez, but he's caught Chris Sale. Sale said great things about him. He caught Strider yesterday. He's caught Ian Anderson. He's caught AJ Smith-Shawver. Obviously, they work together in Gwinnett as well. Like, he's caught Grant Holmes. He has familiarity with all of the catchers. And the public comments we've gotten in the wake of the Sean Murphy injury is they're all confident in his ability to do it. And I don't feel like it was just player speak. I don't feel like they were saying that because they felt like they had to. I feel like they legitimately think he can do it. So that's good news for the Braves. We'll see what happens when Murphy is ready to come back. Unless Drake Baldwin is just absurdly fantastic. Or unless Sean Murphy really struggles when he comes back. It feels like Drake Baldwin's going to go back to Gwinnett so he can catch 4 or 5 days a week and continue developing. Maybe his bat's good enough where you can't send him down. You can slow play Murphy's return. We'll see what happens. It's likely that doesn't happen. There's so much that catchers have to do at the major league level. It's likely he's a little slow when he first comes up. But either way, great thing to have. I think the best case scenario, if Baldwin rakes, when Murphy comes back, they're in that same Travis d'Arnaud timeshare. And if you have some sort of availability at DH because of Marcell Ozuna or something, then you can get Baldwin's bat in the lineup more often and give him that William Contreras role. In just a second, the Braves made a surprising trade last night, and it's really going to kind of mess with our projections for the bullpen. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby, final segment here on Tuesday, talking about the last week of spring training. Your last spring training game is this time next week, next Tuesday in Arizona versus the Cubs. And the Braves continued cutting down some of the roster, but not in the way we expected, right? There was a trade announced last night. The Braves sent reliever Angel Perdomo to the Angels for either cash considerations or a player to be named later. I did not see this coming, but I think there is a very obvious explanation for this. One, I guess they did not think that he was at the point and ready to take on a major league role in the pen. They could have thrown him on rehab for 30 days. I knew that was obviously an option. They chose not to do that. And instead, they made a deal with the Angels. I wondered if we would see a pitcher traded before opening day. I did not think it was going to be Angel Perdomo. I thought it was going to be Ian Anderson. Because Ian Anderson has struggled so far in spring. And I'm beginning to wonder what the plan is here. Yesterday was probably the first time where I legitimately said, I don't see how you can possibly carry Ian Anderson in the rotation. Not that he is bad, but he's not been good. And he's in that weird play. Okay, if Ian Anderson had options, there is a 0% chance he'd be starting the season with the Braves. 0. He would not be on the 2025 Atlanta Braves on opening day. 0%. In spring, it's such weird stats. 2-2 with a 2.65 ERA in 5 appearances. 17 innings. So he's not allowing very many runs. But in those 17 innings, he has 18 strikeouts to only 8 walks. I'm sorry. He has... I said that backwards. Let's do a retake here. He has 18 walks to only 8 strikeouts. And I said, I think it was late last week, that it feels like the plan here is to assume that his walk rate is going to regress closer to his career numbers, right? After yesterday's game, I don't know if it's going to. It will come down. It won't be 20-something. It won't be 25%. But is it going to be closer to his career 10 or 11%? Because right now, in spring, Ian Anderson has an 11.7% strikeout rate and a 25% walk rate. And here's what's wild. If you flip those, if he had a 25% strikeout rate and an 11.7% walk rate, it would still be a problem, but one you could live with. But now, 11.7% strikeout rate and 25% walk rate is a problem. Especially when you consider the fact that AJ Smith-Shawver has a 5.8% walk rate and a 33% strikeout rate in spring. So, after seeing this trade, one, weird that you sent Diekman down and then made this trade, so you're only going to have 2 lefties. I thought they would want to grab that third lefty. Little strange. But now I'm beginning to think, and I know a lot of you have been there before, right? I'm legitimately beginning to think AJ Smith-Shawver's the 5th starter and Ian Anderson's in the bullpen as the 6th starter and a long man. I'm there. I am now there. After that start yesterday, I knew it took a long time to get there. A lot of people have been on this for a lot longer than me. But after watching him against the Red Sox, really a B squad for the Red Sox. And he goes 5 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 5 walks, and 2 strikeouts. He walked a guy every inning. He put 7 runners on base and had a wild pitch. He didn't hit anybody, and a wild pitch. So he put 7 runners on base. He got out of it with only 2 runs allowed. But that's not always reliable. And when you think about, if you look at the schedule and when his first starts would be, if he is the 5, he would be facing the Dodgers. He would be facing the Marlins, who cares? But the Dodgers and then the Marlins. And then the Phillies. That's a problem. He can't do that. 5 walks in 5 innings against the Dodgers and against the Phillies. And you need an extra starter that first week. You have 7 games in 7 days. Then after that, you got a couple off days. And you don't have to have an extra starter. I am now officially at the point where I think that Ian Anderson is the long man in the pen and AJ Smith-Shawver is the 5th starter. Now, you have a decision to make when Strider comes back, right? But if you look at how they've cleaned out guys in the bullpen race, right? Diekman going down, Buck Farmer going down, some of those guys being down in Gwinnett, it really feels this whole thing was, we know we have to carry AJ Smith-Shawver. They may want to preserve Anderson Pilar. I don't know. I still think Anderson Pilar's either going to be sent back to Miami or they're going to make a small trade to get his rights, his full rights from Miami and stick him in Gwinnett. I would like him to stay in Gwinnett, but if Miami asks for too much, you just give him back. Frustrating outing yesterday. And I think at this point, seeing that they traded Perdomo, you've now created a 40-man roster spot, one. So between him and Joe Jimenez, you can add Baldwin, you can add one of the NRIs. You only have to make one more spot. I honestly wondered if they would just trade Ian Anderson, because he's good enough to pitch in the majors. It's just hard to give him the runway to get right if you are the Braves, because you are trying to win a World Series. If he was, don't do this, please don't do this, but if he was on the Marlins, they could run him out there every 5th day all year. It doesn't matter if he's bad. They could let him play his way back into form if he ever gets there, because they don't have any expectations this year. But Atlanta does. And so there is, despite what some people think, there is some trade value to Ian Anderson. Somebody would give you an asset for Ian Anderson. But Atlanta, it still feels, has a little bit of belief in him, because if they didn't, feels like the move would have been sending him out. Would have been trading him for something. Instead, they traded Angel Perdomo. I think I am now at the point, AJ Smith-Shawver is probably going to be your 5th starter. Ian Anderson's probably your long man in the pen, which, new role for him. As far as I can see, I think he's made 4 relief starts in spring training in his career, coming in after another starter, start of an inning, all that kind of stuff. But other than that, he's never, as a professional, worked in the bullpen. And given his status as a first-round pick out of high school, unless it was some sort of tournament or championship game or whatever, and he came back on short rest, he's probably never worked in relief in his life. But he's going to have to learn it, and he's going to have to learn it on the fly. And it's entirely possible if, or really, let's be honest, when there's an injury, because there will be an injury to a pitcher, maybe by then he's had enough run in the pen to figure out whatever's wrong and get back into the rotation. This has been Braves Today for Tuesday, March 18th. Fun fact, this is actually the second time I've recorded this show. I did it yesterday afternoon, and then all of these moves happened last night, so we had to redo it. If you're listening on audio, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Maybe also leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES gets you 10% off your order. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.